I'm 35, male, and I run a successful small business specializing in custom furniture. It's not a massive operation, but it's my passion and livelihood. I started it in my garage 10 years ago, worked my way up from nothing, and poured everything I had into it: time, money, and soul. My wife, 33, has been by my side for the last 7 years, or so I thought. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I didn't expect it to crumble the way it did. We'd grown a bit distant, mostly because I was focused on expanding the business and dealing with its day-to-day demands. I had no idea she was harboring resentment or cooking up plans that would eventually tear my life apart. The turning point came one Thursday evening. I had just come back from a meeting with a supplier. My wife was sitting at the dining table, scrolling through her laptop, looking overly preoccupied. She barely acknowledged me. "Long day?" I asked, trying to break the ice. She just hummed and kept typing. It wasn't unusual for her to be detached lately, but something felt off. Curiosity got the better of me, so when she went to take a shower later that night, I glanced at her laptop. She'd left it open. What I saw made my stomach drop. Emails. Dozens of them. Between her and a real estate agent, discussing the sale of my business property. There were mentions of buyers, price negotiations, and even a closing date. She was selling it. Without telling me, I felt a wave of rage and disbelief wash over me. Why would she do this? And how did she think she could? My name was the only one on the deed, the business licenses, everything. She didn't have the legal authority to sell it. The next morning, I played it cool. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I took the day off and went straight to my lawyer. After explaining the situation, he confirmed what I already suspected. My wife couldn't legally sell the business without my consent. However, the emails indicated she'd been impersonating me, signing documents and forging my signature. That, he explained, was fraud. He advised me to gather as much evidence as possible. He also suggested we notify the potential buyers immediately to prevent the sale from going through. It was good advice, but I wasn't done yet. I wanted to know why my wife was doing this. That evening, I casually asked her how her day went. She shrugged. "Same old." "Why?" "No reason," I said. "I was just thinking we haven't spent much time together. Maybe we should take a weekend trip." She looked surprised. "Really? You want to take time off the business?" "Yeah, I've been too busy lately. It's time to slow down." She bought it. That night, I went through her laptop again, this time taking screenshots of everything. The emails, the signed documents, even a scanned copy of what appeared to be my forged signature. The deeper I dug, the angrier I got. She wasn't just selling the property. She was planning to take the money and file for divorce immediately after. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind raced with thoughts of betrayal, anger, and revenge. By morning, I had a plan. The first step was to alert the potential buyers. I sent them a formal letter through my lawyer, explaining the situation and warning them that any attempt to proceed with the purchase would result in legal action. They backed out immediately. Next, I confronted the real estate agent who'd been working with my wife. She was shocked to learn about the fraud and agreed to cooperate in exchange for not being implicated. Then, I confronted my wife. "Can we talk?" I asked her one evening, try to keep my voice steady. "Sure," she said, looking wary. I pulled out a folder filled with the evidence I'd gathered and placed it on the table. "Care to explain this?" Her face turned white. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence. I know you've been trying to sell the business behind my back. I've seen the emails. I've seen the forged documents. What I don't understand is why." She stammered, searching for words. Finally, she said, "You've been so focused on that business, you don't even see me anymore. I was tired of being second place. I thought if I sold it, we could have a fresh start." "A fresh start? By committing fraud? By stealing everything I've worked for?" "It wasn't stealing. I'm your wife. I have a right to it." Her entitlement was staggering. "You don't have a right to commit fraud. Do you have any idea what you've done? You could go to jail for this." Her expression shifted from defensive to panicked. "You wouldn't do that to me, would you?" "Oh, I would, but not yet." I wanted her to feel the full weight of her actions first. Over the next few weeks, I let her believe I was considering her apology. I acted distant but not angry, giving her just enough hope to keep her off guard. Meanwhile, I worked with my lawyer to build a case against her. When the day finally came, she was served with divorce papers and a lawsuit for fraud. I also filed a report with the police. She was charged with forgery and attempted fraud, both felonies. Her reaction when she was arrested was pure shock. She cried, begged, and even tried to blame me, claiming I'd driven her to it. None of it worked. In court, the evidence spoke for itself. The emails, the forged documents, the testimonies from the real estate agent and potential buyers, it was all airtight. My wife tried to argue that she was entitled to half the business as part of the divorce, but the judge didn't buy it. Because she'd committed fraud, she forfeited any claim to the business. In the end, she was convicted of forgery and sentenced to probation and community service. The divorce was finalized shortly after, with me retaining full ownership of the business and all associated assets. She walked away with nothing but a criminal record and a mountain of legal fees. Looking back, I'm still hurt by her betrayal, but I'm also proud of how I handled it. I didn't let her entitlement destroy what I'd built, and I made sure she faced the consequences of her actions. It was a painful experience, but it taught me a valuable lesson about trust and resilience. After the dust settled, I started piecing my life back together. It wasn't easy. There were sleepless nights where I replayed everything in my head, wondering how I missed the signs. My ex-wife now, had always been somewhat materialistic, but I never thought she'd stoop to something this extreme. The betrayal wasn't just about the business. It was about the trust she shattered. Friends and family had mixed reactions. Some were shocked, others not so much. My parents were livid, especially my mom. "I told you she was too controlling," she said more than once. My dad, ever the pragmatic one, simply said, "At least you caught it in time." What really stuck with me, though, were the people who tried to justify her actions. A couple of mutual friends tried to tell me she did it out of frustration, that I'd been too focused on work. "Maybe if you'd paid her more attention, she wouldn't have done this," one of them said. That comment stung, but I didn't let it get to me. People who justify betrayal don't deserve space in your life. So, I cut them out too. Then came the unexpected twist. About 6 months after everything was finalized, I got a call from the real estate agent who had been involved in the scheme. She seemed nervous, but insisted on meeting me in person. I was curious, so I agreed. We met at a small coffee shop. She handed me an envelope and said, "I thought you should see this." Inside were copies of more emails, this time between my ex-wife and her boyfriend. Turns out, she hadn't been acting alone. She'd been in a relationship with this guy for over a year. He was the one who came up with the idea to sell the business and split the money. The emails revealed everything. How they planned to use the money to move to another state, how they laughed about me being too clueless to catch on, and how they planned to leave me with nothing. This new information reignited the fire in me. My lawyer and I filed a civil lawsuit against the boyfriend for conspiring to commit fraud. Since he wasn't married to me and had no claim to the business, his involvement made it easier to hold him accountable. The case dragged on for months, but in the end we won. He was ordered to pay damages, which, while not life-changing money, was a small victory that felt incredibly satisfying. As for my ex-wife, I learned through mutual acquaintances that her life had taken a nosedive. The criminal record made it hard for her to find work, and her boyfriend eventually left her. I didn't revel in her misfortune, but I can't say I felt sorry for her either. She made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. My business, on the other hand, was thriving. I expanded operations, hired a few more employees, and even started working on a new product line. It felt good to focus on something positive after all the chaos. Every now and then, I'd get a call or message from someone who knew my ex-wife, trying to mediate or convince me to let bygones be bygones. But I never responded. Forgiveness is one thing, but letting someone who betrayed you back into your life is another. If there's one thing I've learned from this entire ordeal, it's this: people will surprise you, for better or worse. But when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. And when life knocks you down, don't just get back up. Come back stronger. Thanks for reading. If you want more stories where the bad guys get what's coming to them, stick around and subscribe. There's plenty more where this came from.